Oh, you don't do the 30-second countdown, man?
Heck no. I just try to do this kind of by ear. I learn by ear. I try by ear. All right. It looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with James Krake, and we are discussing his work and his book, Infinite Money Glitch. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing pretty good. I am quite ready for the Christmas holiday. I don't know about you. I get
Oh,
time off work because of my job.
oh, I get time at work too. I get time and a half for the 24 hours I will be there. uh,
I much prefer being with my family, cooking food, and drinking heavily. I'm going to campaign that we turn on the director's cut trilogy of Lord of the Rings.
I will be trying to make extra money because I just moved into a new place and it requires a bit of TLC.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah, I'm
that
doing
is
good.
so. Tell us a little bit about yourself to start us off.
Hello, I'm James Rick. I am a independently published author that is currently my side gig. It is not my day job, unfortunately, because I need to sell more books. But I publish a epic fantasy web novel for free over on Royal Road, and I've published 5 science fiction novels on Amazon. I believe we're mostly here to talk about Infinite Money Glitch today, which is my funny novel that I still adore, even though it's like a while ago I published it now.
I actually thought it was really funny, and I appreciate comedy in books because there's so precious little of it.
It's
Uh,
hard to do.
so tell us a little about your book in your own words.
So there are a number of things went into the mix to make this. And for the record, whenever I mention like inspirations or ideas or things I was trying to do, they always layer into the fundamental elements of story, which is you got to have characters that the reader cares about, and they have to be struggling and working through an escalating challenge to get to a satisfying climax, and then you resolve the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the key inspiration for Infinite Money Glitch was the amount of money I lost on the GameStop short squeeze because of
Mm.
Wall Street chicanery. Uh, I am still mad about that because I set my limit sale order uh, ended up being $4 above the peak price. I was $4. I was less than a percentage wrong on my guess of where it would peak. I lost
Oh,
everything. And in retrospect, I was just like, the way that played out and the amount of people that got screwed by that and the amount of people that saw like this echo of Occupy Wall Street kind of stuff,
mm-hmm.
this is going to resonate. Not only did it have like a natural narrative to it, as because you go back to when DFV like figured out it was undervalued, and then these almost anonymous hedge funds started doubling down on it, and created this bizarre like inappropriate scenario in the stock market that could be exploited essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It was just such a weird situation that you drew out all these nefarious powers in the mesh between Wall Street and government, essentially, that ended up with the common guy kind of getting screwed in a lot of ways. And then I looked at that and I was like, yeah, it's GameStop. I can mix this with video games, and this will be great because I'm like, I cut myself off. I did not copy anything from them, but like, have you ever watched Viva La Dirt League?
I have not.
So they've been doing skits about like characters in video games reacting realistically to video game stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's treating AIs like they're actual people trying to do a job operating the Quest. I'd watched it years and years and years ago, and the skits are hilarious. I was just like, I can take that kind of humor and work it into this narrative structure and just kind of build out some ideas. Bring in all the fact that I spend hours and hours a week watching speedrunners or streamers or VTubers and stuff like that. Just bring in all the gamer parasocial culture and such to give material for the story. And then just
Mm-hmm.
build it as like an adventure heist, which is a genre I hadn't written before. I was like, hey, I get to explore a new type of storytelling. I get to develop some skills here. and took a crack at being as good as Sir Terry Pratchett because Discworld is amazing.
It absolutely is. So I have to say, Wolf is actually one of my favorite types of main characters, or at least as far as I could catch, where he's just a bit of a jerk, which is by far my favorite. Was this an intentional decision on your part?
Absolutely. So the idea, the one of the big underlying conflicts of the story is supposed to be the difference between basically the NPCs and the players, aka the people allowed to win at the system and those that aren't, even though there's really shouldn't be any difference. And I just wanted to play into like take a character and say he is just seething over that disparity in status. Okay, well, how do I represent his desire for status? I'm going to tie it to his struggles with the opposite sex and such. And then how does him being upset with life cause his own problems because he has the wrong outlook and such? And how can I use that for humor? Because people enjoy when the punchline is a guy basically being a jerk and getting his own comeuppance. Everyone can laugh at that.
To be fair, he does seem to have very good reason because within the first 2 pages, someone drops a bomb in his shop so they can use a glitch in the game to propel themselves backward at Mach speed.
Yeah, that's the balance because you also need the reader to sympathize with the character. And I've had some readers kind of like not realize that Wolf's circumstances are a product of his own misanthropy. Because like there are other characters living good lives that interact with him that just find him kind of annoying, right?
Yeah, well, I have to say the speedrunner did come in handy when he had to get from one town to the other at Mach speed, screaming the whole way as he's attached to the back of that cart.
Okay, so I watched your review video a few times, twice.
Mm-hmm.
Try to catch it live, right? You don't know where that glitch is from, do you?
I do not.
That is a direct reference to the OG video game of my childhood, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. That's the hyperslide glitch for speedrunning Ocarina of Time if you don't use arbitrary code execution.
I did not have internet or really any access when Ocarina of Time came out. In fact, I only got to see it from friends because I am in a very poor area.
Well, the speedrunners only figured it out in like 2010.
Really? I had solid internet in 2014.
All right, so I think it is highly worth your time if you look up. God, what is it called? I don't even know what it's called now. But it was like the world record before arbitrary code execution.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not aware, speedrunning has gotten incredibly broken. Because basically what everyone does now is they attempt to find ways that they can turn controller inputs into coding. So they can just code, load end credits.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like they can do that in Super Mario World or something in less than 7 seconds, I think is the world record. And it's just bad.
Actually,
yeah, I grew up on Ocarina of Time, and then when speedrunning started taking off, I really got into the glitch explanations because I like computers and programming and the way the systems can break because of what seemed like good ideas for elegant programming, but oh crap, if they can get around a barrier, all of a sudden the table is overflowing or something like that.
Apparently, our chat thinks that takes the skill away.
Arbitrary code execution is a different kind of skill.
True.
The bigger issue, if you're not aware, is that there's nothing to watch as a viewer because you're basically just seeing a character twitch around until something happens and the game's over.
Actually, I do have to retract my previous statement. I
played a number of knockoffs that I went through the free trial, such as Final Fantasy 14. I got completely scammed by my friends trying to play World of Warcraft, the hardcore classic, that reboot thing they did. Dude, did you try playing World of Warcraft when they did the classic reboot?
I was there with bells on. I was so excited for the classic reboot.
Dude, I went to my friend. I drove halfway across the state, and I grabbed my 2 friends that were still living in that city. We went to one of their friends' brother's house, and there were a bunch of other people. There was like 6 of us, all had our gaming rigs set up around this guy's living room, and we were just gaming and drinking until midnight. And as soon as midnight hit, we all hit Q. and they got in 15 minutes, and it took 4 hours for me to get in. They were level 20 by the time I built my character, and I never caught up.
You know, they remade Classic, but it wasn't really Classic, because I remember True Classic. Well, I got in there right when Burning Crusade came out. You would bust butt all day long and maybe get 2 or 3 levels out of it. It was brutal back in the day.
Dude, with these long grind MMOs, it's so hard to actually play with a friend at the same pace.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not like in high school, it's so hard to just match the amount of free time, especially when there's like 8-hour queue times to get in.
So, since we're talking about MMOs and your book is based on an MMO, is this your ideal MMO, the what's represented in the book?
Absolutely not. This is, I think I tried to portray a real MMO because it is intentionally one of the most poorly designed and managed game systems I could imagine. Because the idea is that the company just keeps trying to come out with new expansions to try and keep the interest going because they're making money off of it. So the systems just keep getting crudely piled on top of each other until everything starts breaking. So just like, because I like exploring exploits and interactions and people getting in the weeds about things that business majors screwed up.
Oh, they do tend to screw up a lot of stuff once they get their grimy little paws on it.
Yeah.
So what would
this is aside from the fact that I would love to play a full immersion virtual reality MMO. This is a terrible game.
I don't know. It seemed to have some fun little things. I always detest a level cap, though. Once I played Eve Online, I fell in love with the skill-based system.
So, that reminds me. I want to address something that you complained about. You were upset that, or you found it incredulous that players hadn't figured out a max level merchant could equip any item.
Yes.
Right. Which is like when you have this. Technically, this is a lit RPG, right?
Right.
And normally, when you're writing a story that is kind of a power fantasy progression, where the guy goes and kills monsters and gets stronger, they have a reason to be the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And for the record, just that was that's what made Wolf the protagonist, is because he was bringing in merchant skills. And what does that translate to? It's the ability to appraise stuff and and because he understands everything, he can sell everything, he can equip stuff, and it gives them just flexibility to level up.
Right.
What I wanted to imply that maybe I didn't do a good enough job doing is he got to level 100 because he spent 3 years literally working as a merchant, which is something no human would do. So there is no human with level 100 merchant skill because that's a job.
I think you underestimate the autism of the average gamer, but I will hand that to you.
Well, that was the intent. and on top of that, another idea is that, like, even if you can mix and match gear, the end state PvP level cap stuff is supposed to be balanced, and breaking things like that wouldn't be a particular advantage if you're not getting like an intentional build. That was the idea, but to be honest, I've never actually hit level cap, with one exception in an MMO, and that one exception is Warframe, which isn't really the same if you've ever played Space Ninjas.
I have not played Space Ninjas. Steam has been trying to push it down my throat for a few years, but I have not played Space Ninjas yet.
Yeah, so Space Ninjas are completely broken. Like, holy crap, things are broken. And it's a cooperative game, which is just completely different. So actually, I had to base the competitive interactions on Magic the Gathering, because I actually do, or in 2014 or so, I was actually like pro level competitive as far as my playability and such. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, so I know how this works. I know how these interactions. I'm just going to pretend that it translates to a video game, and I'll make it convincing.
Dino Rex Chris says there's always someone who hundreds everything within 24 hours. Some of those old MMOs, you ain't hundreding nothing in 24 hours.
Ew.
They made you grind hard for that stuff.
Yep.
Oh, so How
By
much
the way, I just want to call it Samuel Schwager. Yes, there is a movie about the actual short squeeze event. That I didn't actually write a Wall Street thriller, even though I do enjoy those movies. I just used it as a framework for a heist.
I mean, it was a very good heist. Did you ever try any kind of shenanigans like that within an MMO?
No, I did not. Well, like I said, I never actually hit level cap, with the exception of Warframe.
I don't.
So I'm jealous that you had that kind of thing where you got banned.
Oh,
You
I
have
didn't.
perhaps more accolades than I do in this regard.
I didn't hit level cap to do that. I got to a level 65 shaman in World of Warcraft, and I found out I could corner the metal market if I just cornered one, and then set everything at my price and bought out everything underneath me and set it at my price to the point everybody started sending stuff to me. Then I moved up to the next metal, and I got
Yeah,
all the way up
so
to
there
silver, I think.
that was actually on my mind, although I just rebuilt the system with no reference because I didn't know how other game systems actually did it. Because the short squeeze and infinite money glitch is about cornering the metal market in the first one, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of thought about it. I was just like, so the game has to have a way for new players to progress, so they can
Mm-hmm.
be good pay piggies later on.
Right.
Which means that they have to have a failsafe against people just buying everything and stonewalling people just to set extortion prices. So that's when I got into this kind of like semi AI controlled balancing of how the resources respawn in the natural world. Because like obviously, if there's an infinite amount of iron, then it's worth zero.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a limited supply based on the demand. And I just try to play with that to create like this to justify the supply orders and such so that it felt like an economy.
Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately was like the most confusing thing to try to explain because even with the actual stock market, explaining what short selling is
Mm-hmm.
hard. And then explaining what a short squeeze is, which is a strange thing that happens sometimes when you short really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Even in reality, it's hard to explain that. So when trying to explain a game version of that, I'm pretty sure I dropped the ball on that, to be honest.
It was a little difficult the first few times trying to figure out what he was doing, but round about the midway point, I'm like, oh, I got what he's trying to do. They have to supply it, and he's going to hold it back so he can bankrupt them. I got it. He that's when I realized you were copying the GameStop thing.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out what kind of shenanigans they were pulling earlier on.
So how long did it take for you to figure out that the death and taxes build was being falsely hyped up?
I don't think I caught on to that until to me, it just sounded a lot like the same hype that comes along with every expansion for every game I've ever played. Oh, this is going to do this. Oh, this is going to do that. And,
Okay, good.
you spend so many years playing a game and you start to drown out all the meta stuff as just background noise. It's like, well, we'll see what happens, a year on. Plus, I never did PvP at the end, so.
Well, so not most games aren't designed around PvP.
No.
That's usually a system that gets tacked on. So I think it's kind of cool if an MMO world were to be designed around the PvP first and foremost, and not in the Make Love Not Warcraft. There's a level 1000 guy camping the spawn of new players kind of way. I despise trying to run a quest and then just getting ganked by some lard ass on the other side of the world.
Oh, you would have. So I swapped after World of Warcraft banned me, and I got back on. I went to EVE Online, where doing exactly what I was doing was not only allowed but encouraged.
EVE scares me.
EVE was awesome, but it's boy, you want to talk about trade wars? I was trying to corner the ammo market, and I think I got my corporation. I think I got my corporation decked. So. We had a nice little month-long war, if I remember correctly, and everybody had to leave. Well, EVE is it's like a libertarian's wet dream, but it's the most horrifyingly capitalist thing you'll ever play. And I don't mean that from a communist point of view. I mean, it's just
So,
frightening.
so Spreadsheet Simulator Online is something I prefer to consume vicariously from people trying to explain it to me rather than actually trying to play it.
Oh no, it was great because if you have enough money, you can pay the PvP corporations to declare war on your rival corporations. But there's alliances, so if you declare war on a corporation and didn't know they were part of an alliance, now you're at war with that entire alliance. So it's just a crazy political mess. I loved it. It was fantastic. So, getting back to the book, what process did you follow to write a comedy? A lot of people have trouble with it. Was there anything special you did or people you had to consult?
Literally, there's like one piece of advice that I stuck with, which is if you want to tell a funny story, you have to start with funny characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I mentioned, Wolf being the creator of his own misfortune was like, all right, that's how I'm going to build a protagonist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I wanted to get into like ethos and simping because I had all this. I was able to just pull on like all of gamer culture for whatever inspiration I needed. So I had a great time every time the ethos just hits him up and schmoozes him and then just fleeces him on the spot.
You got him with the freaking cat ears. That's what it was. The skimpy skirt and the cat ears.
Yeah, so then it's just like, all right, so it's sort of a sci-fi, it's sort of a fantasy, which means I can make these characters be anything, such as a skeleton lich, but like he doesn't have any organs, and he just wants to like live a normal life, but because of censorship, he no longer has organs, which means he can't drink. I was like, all right, so if this is the character motivation, because you also have to ask, like, all right, this is a heist. I need like 5 people that have a unique skill that can come together to pull this off, and then each of them have to have a reason to want the money. So where are they going to get with it? And the best one was Ashley, the undead lich, wanted to come back to life so he could live a normal life. So I got a lot of mileage out of him, and then it's just like, okay, so they have to bring in the human speedrunner, even though Wolf hates human players. Well, it's because this guy knows where all the glitches are, and he's doing it for content essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And
Abby was the best. Abby was one of the best characters.
For the record, that's a reference to the Oblivion character creator. Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, random features. Let's go.
I mean, you could try to make an attractive character in that, and it would still turn out to be the ugliest thing on the planet.
Yeah. I started just by trying to make silly characters, and then give them sometimes at times personalities that clash with their outward appearance because they're AIs. They were designed for a role such as a guardian golem for this castle quest. But the company was too incompetent to actually design the correct personality for that. So they just kind of got random personalities. So I thought that was funny. And then from there, I started asking the question of, okay, so what is the actual A plot, such as Wolf has noticed that the price of iron ore has spiked 100 times. What does he have to do in order to get his payday on that? Oh, for example, he needs to distract the guards so that he doesn't get ganked in PvP, and he needs to get all the iron back to town. What's he going to do? Well, if he needs the guards out in the fields, he's going to just murder somebody to report the crime with no witnesses and then go run off. Okay, so what problem does that cause? Well, that was a player. The player respawns and he comes after him. I've now got an antagonist, which is, of course, D's nuts.
He was yes, he was the perfect. That was the perfect name for him because I've been killed several times in many a game by somebody with a fairly crass name.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't at some point tried to beat the word filter to get a dirty name in?
But the perfect thing about Eve was that you could put a bounty on their head if they killed you. You could literally, I was like, okay, I'm going to dump all the money I just made. I'm going to dump 2 billion ISK on your head just to make it hard for you to fly around. But I guess That was just my fun because all I did in that game was make money, so I could put ridiculous bounties on people's heads.
Nice. But yeah, funny characters with an understanding of what the A plot is. So I always try to keep a focus on like, okay, so to get the money, he has to do X, Y, and Z. Because I ascribe to Brandon Sanderson's methodology of pacing. Essentially, you need to signpost what has to be done, and then as you do each of those things, the reader feels like the book is moving along. And then it was just like, as the like, a lot of times I just make up a locale, right? Like I didn't outline that it was going to be a Phoenix dungeon that they have to get past a bunch of minotaurs so they can fight a giant flaming bird or something. Like I just got to that part where it's like, all right, well, he needs to go into an instance of a boss dungeon battle. What sounds like fun? All right, I remember this dungeon from World of Warcraft. I'll take some inspiration from there and go. So it was just, I get to it. All right, this needs to be kind of funny. Well, what's going to go wrong? Ash has figured out how to make solid alcohol, and he's rubbing it into his bones. He's gotten drunk at the bar when he's supposed to be sober. Right?
So, who would you say you pull the most inspiration from for this particular book?
You mean what other author?
Yes.
Terry Pratchett. The Guard series lives rent free in my head, which is great.
I have yet to get to that part yet. I've been slowly making my way through Terry Pratchett.
Oh, I enjoy it. I got to read them because I've only read like 5 of his books. And I got those are rookie numbers. I got to pump those numbers up.
Oh, you're only 3 ahead of me. I'm going to do a double feature this week, and I'll just start getting ahead of you.
I'm working on a series right now. I got to start completing some of these things.
Same here. I've got battle games coming out in 2 months, and I really got to finish that. And I got the contests, so I got to judge that. That's going to be fun. Nice. Anyway, sorry, brain fart there. So,
sorry, I don't have like a PowerPoint list of how to be funny in a book.
Well, that would certainly be unfunny.
Well, you didn't ask me here to be a stand-up comic.
Oh, well, I demand you tell some jokes right now.
What's the difference between a fish and a piano?
What's that?
You can tune a fish, but you can't tune a piano.
No,
I got wrong. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Yeah, there it is. The classic Dragon Ball Z. That's been on my mind, actually, because I was chatting with a Zoomer at work and realized that he's too young to have watched Dragon Ball Z. I was like, oh, I'm old, Gandalf.
He's not too old. They still watch it down in Mexico and everywhere else in the world. Why did we stop?
Who said we stopped?
I mean, I prefer
the younger generation isn't part of it. But yeah.
So getting a little bit to not so much what we were talking about before the stream, but so a lot of people have stated, or a lot of modern books are more about the message. How do you feel about a book being more about the message rather than the story?
Well, a book can have a message, and it arguably probably should in a lot of ways, but a story is about characters with a conflict, and it is about entertaining the person who paid money for that product. Those are 1 and 2. A message might be 3, although in my case, making the consumer laugh was number 3 by far. But at some level in the priorities, if you don't have a theme or a message, the work is going to come across as shallow. I think. So, like I mentioned at the start, like getting in on the resentment of that people have, where they're seeing that actual Wall Street seems to be rigged against retail investors. Even though I don't really come to a conclusion about it, which I don't think coming to a conclusion is actually necessary, because then that's how you kind of get preachy. But yeah, hitting on that is why I think people enjoy it. It's because people have that issue with how our economy currently works.
So if it's not picking at a sore spot, around how much did you lose on the GME?
Well, I didn't go in that hard. It was like $500 or something.
Oh, you lost part of a computer on it. That's like half a graphics card right there.
One that works on virtual reality or doesn't.
I couldn't tell you. I can't do virtual reality. I'm blind in one eye. So,
Ooh,
yeah, not really, but just enough to where it doesn't work and it makes me sick.
that's unfortunate. But you're sadly you're not missing anything. As far as I'm aware, it's been like 5 years since commercial VR headsets, and the best game is still Beat Saber.
I have watched a few people play it. It's more fun to watch than I guess it is to play. I
I
never.
Once you get to the highest difficulty, it's just you can't make sense of what's happening unless you're the player at the highest difficulty.
It's Guitar Hero with swords.
Yeah, that's what makes it great. Are you saying you didn't spend thousands of hours playing Guitar Hero?
I did not. I spent thousands of hours playing strategy games like Civilization and RimWorld and Factorio.
Bro, Civilization is so broken. Like
It
it
absolutely
is
is.
a bad representation of what it sells itself as.
It
Because
is.
the actual strategies are so gamey about it. It's terrible. I hate it.
I know, but it's still fun. Factorio is arguably a better game.
Did you say that I was streaming Satisfactory back on Friday?
I did not.
Dude, Civil Engineering Simulator. It's great.
Oh, I don't need something else to waste all my time on. I just
It's
spent 4 hours.
co-op Factorio, my dude, in 3D.
Oh, see here, we got Dino Rex Chris. He's actually playing a real guitar. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, I have no musical talent. I have some painting talent, but it takes a lot of hours to get good at those things.
Yes, and arguably we probably would have been better off, learning a musical instrument. But
Probably.
I learned to build my own computers and wire a house. I'm fine.
Fair enough.
So you're not just an author; you're also a YouTuber. As
Sure.
far as books go, what
There
have you
was a
found?
time where we had the same amount of subscribers.
There was.
That was so recently.
Oh,
Yet you at almost doubling me now.
it feels almost like 235 subscribers ago.
Yeah. A couple months ago, I basically said I have to have a platform that reaches people. I have to be in control of it. I need to diversify my theoretical income streams. And so I looked at it. I was like, okay, I need a YouTube channel. I can't devote that many hours in the week to it because my goal, my true north goal, is I want to write a novel that people will read and enjoy 100 years after the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
That is my goal. Everything else must serve that, which is why if you watch my videos, you'll notice I don't edit them. I refuse to learn editing. That is a time-consuming activity that would require me to learn a lot that does not translate to me writing a better book.
I can attest it is a very time-consuming activity.
Right. But like theoretically, if I had 10,000 subscribers, whatever, enough views to pay somebody it, yeah, I recognize it makes the videos better. If it was self-funding, I'd absolutely be paying someone to edit my videos. But likewise, what can I talk about theoretically 3 times a week that doesn't take an exorbitant amount of extra time? I said, well, it's got to be, and also feeds into selling books. How do I cultivate an audience on YouTube that will go and buy my books? Well, I got to talk about stories. I got to talk about artificial intelligence and literature and book reviews and engage the indie scene. And I'm able to do that because I'm keeping up on artificial intelligence out of my own personal curiosity. So I'm not going and researching something just to make YouTube videos about it. And the book reviews, even though no one watches book reviews, is because as an author, I feel I have to consume in order to improve. So I'm reading those books anyways, and I'm just trying to pick out something that is interesting to talk about for 10 minutes about that book, which sometimes misleads people because they're not always really reviews. Sometimes they're just discussions or analyses, or it gets me off on a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
I might actually talk about Disney. I think my Wednesday video is going to be I'm going to try and tie Confessions of an Economic Hitman to Does That Explain Why Disney is Flopping at Marvel? I've got some ideas about how to connect those dots because, like, reading a book on international usury in the NSA definitely helps flush out my cyberpunk writing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's nonfiction, which doesn't really like appeal to BookTube, But it's something I
Mm-hmm.
had to read, so it's like, okay, how do I make content out of that? Well, maybe I can get into the weeds about what Disney is probably spending its hundreds of millions of dollars actually on, and why they're probably doing better than a bunch of clickbait, rage bait YouTubers are implying they're doing.
I don't know. I've done a few book reviews that are actually doing really well, but that's because the
Yeah, if
author
you
is
review a very popular author, you
yeah,
can get a lot of views. Like both of our Shadow the Conqueror videos are
yep.
going nuts.
Oh, Shad.
Yeah, but like I don't want to just chase down the latest Brandon Sanderson book or the latest George R. R. Martin book, or let me just dig up the cringe crap that won the Hugo Award this year. I want to read the books I want to read.
Understandable. I try to mix it up a bit because I want to it's that whole thing about your shadow self improving where you're weak. So I want to see what's popular. So I'll tend to review a little mix of some indie and some classic and just whatever I feel like doing that week to avoid burnout.
Fair enough. I tend to switch between nonfiction research. I work in indie books. I work in the classics. Which, by the way, can I do a little shill?
Sure.
One of the things I do on my YouTube channel is a monthly book club, and this month is William Gibson's Neuromancer, and it's a free invite to anyone. I also try to bring on indie creators for a live stream about it. Link in my videos. I've been thinking that for January content, I should try and take the temperature of trad publishing and go, all right, well, what were the top 10 bestsellers of 2023, and just work through that list and review them one by one. I'm not sure I'd survive the process.
Well, Ian Cake, she went through the ALA banned books, like the top 10. Oh, that was a rough list.
Well, banned books annoy the shit out of me because there's only a few actually banned books, and the ones that are actually banned are about exposing U.S. war crimes. Those are the only books banned in America.
These were the banned books. So
yeah, the gay homosexual pornography.
Yes, like Jack of Hearts and things that people want to stick in school, but they call them banned because they won't let children read them because they're perverted.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently.
For the record, to anyone watching, I write adult. The Infinite Mighty Glitch is not for kids. It's like chapter 1. There's an orgy going on in the background.
Yes, but you do it rather tastefully. It's not overly exposed. It's not horribly graphic.
Yeah, it's just I know for a fact that people go into games to do that.
Yes, but we try to avoid them as civilized people.
Well, no, but everyone moved on to the other tutorial zones,
So I do have to ask you, because in some ways it feels a little bit cliche, but what was the inspiration for Sophia, Queen of Hell?
So I don't think I can pinpoint a specific inspiration, but I definitely was just like, all right, so this is a story about money, and I actually kind of hate the lit RPG genre. I've read 30 lit RPG books, and I have consumed my fill. It's a bad genre in a lot of ways, because building the tension of fights around comparing numbers is just bad in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it sells like hotcakes. And I think there's a number of other reasons that it works, and the numbers are a weird side effect. But I wanted to not have things rely on that. So I was like, okay, so how can I make this adventure story about people leveling up in a video game actually about money? So I said, okay, so he's just going to buy better gear. He's going to spend money to power himself up. And I made that a recurring theme. So I was like, well, you got to spend money to make money. I need more conflict. So he needs to take out a loan. What would be the most ridiculous bank in the system? Hell. And as soon as I had that idea, I was just like, oh hell yeah. And then the question was like, all right, so what is the most ridiculous Lord of Hell I could write? And it was, the Infinite Eyes of Shadows actually is wearing the, 2022 swimsuit edition novelty gear.
I do like that it's an eldritch abomination disguised as a hot devil woman.
Yeah. Because I also like that tension because it plays into Wolf's character of he isn't able to get the female attention he wants. And then here it is like a 10 out of 10 smoke show that likes him, air quotes, and just scares the shit out of him.
I think he would have put him to work actually making money rather than, the torture he thought was coming his way.
Maybe we'll find out in book 2. I haven't decided. I've got other plans for book 2 of hyperinflation insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that is area I can explore in the second book, maybe.
But we got a hail from John A. Douglas.
I gotta check if I'm in a Twitter spat with him over orcs. It looks like he hasn't noticed. Nope, wait, it updated. He has not noticed. Cool. All right. Forget you heard that, John.
So I have to ask, since you're here, because I'm kind of in the space in between, what are your feelings and opinions on the Iron Age?
So I'm a renegade in this regard. I have made a point of coining a new term that I use because I think it is just factually correct that we're entering a new paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have chosen to refer to as the Age of the Wolf, which I think you were the one that pointed out that in German that's Wolfzeit, right?
Wolfzeit, yep.
Yeah. Because I think if we just look at it, it's patently obvious that the industries in charge of curating and accumulating and producing our culture have failed miserably. And people are going to suffer because their entertainment is bad right now. But they're going to eventually look to new sources. And that is the paradigm shift that we're seeing, where it has to be going back to individual creators with inspiration rather than these 20-person writer rooms bickering over each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's clearly happening. People are looking for that, and there are reasons they're looking for that. However, I think the Iron Age is a branded team, essentially, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it is still sorting itself out because there are sub-teams within it where some people are, I'm convinced there is a large amount of people in it that simply don't want to admit that this is woke backlash for them. There are other people that are, this is Christian backlash. There are other people that are Disney backlash. And then there are other people that don't realize that that's who they're standing next to. So it is very much a team sport when people are talking about the Iron Age, in my opinion. But there is an actual paradigm, but I don't brand myself Iron Age because of that.
So you think some of these larger corporations are having trouble with the designed by committee story?
Yeah, designed by committee is the worst thing you could possibly do.
I don't disagree. I think what's that old saying? Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're like, if you're doing like an episodic sitcom where you have to have a new episode of The Office every week for 40 weeks of the year, one person cannot do that.
No.
But I would argue that's why you shouldn't do a new episode of a sitcom 40 weeks in a row.
So since we are in an age right now of bad media, what is the worst piece of media you've consumed recently?
I mean, I know that there is a lot of YouTube trash that I've clicked on and wanted to get my click back, but I couldn't tell you anything about them. I'm trying to look at my bookshelf right now because generally speaking, I actually like the things I read.
Hmm.
Generally, and honestly, I have to come out and say that the worst thing I read recently is actually The Long Moonlight by Razorfist.
That was pretty bad, actually.
Like I track an Iron Age tier list where I am giving broad categories to try and put in some strata to these things. I didn't think I would ever put something in the D tier.
You purloined it into the detail tier.
Well, in my video, I outright said this is unpublishedly bad. Like this is so bad it should not be for sale.
Now, I will say his second book was better.
Well, probably authors do improve significantly.
Oh yes, but somebody still needs to take his thesaurus away.
That's not even the problem. It was the fundamental structure and the jamming in a bunch of ideas that didn't mesh together, forcing relationships,
Mm-hmm.
treating the world like a video game marketing strategy for me. But I think Long Moonlight was so bad that I have to consider it a money grift.
So, if you had to pick which one was worse, which would you say was worse, Long Moonlight or Shadow of the Conqueror?
Long Moonlight. Why does nobody believe me that I actually liked Shadow of the Conqueror? It's B tier. There were a lot of good things about Shadow of the Conqueror. There was just a lot of very obviously bad things.
I think my favorite part is still the part where he breaks in through that wall like the Kool-Aid Man and literally emasculates that girl's father.
No, the worst part was sodomizing his bastard son.
Yeah, that was pretty rough because you had to whisper in his ear, "Do you know who I am?"
Book had problems, but I stand by that if you are an aspiring creator, you should read the book because it will blatantly show you why you don't do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
The flaws are so in your face that you will learn so much by reading it.
Honestly, if he had cut out a lot of the power testing and restructured how he figures out his powers, it
I
probably.
wasn't upset about that part.
Oh, I
It
was.
was the fact that he has all of the powers.
He does have all the powers. He
Why did
needed,
you think that was a good idea?
you know, if it had been a much longer series and he had to suffer to gain those powers, it might have worked.
Well, no, actually. So I think I hope I remember to say this in my review.
Mm-hmm.
If his cover story had been the actual story, it would be like a 9 out of 10 book.
Mm-hmm.
If the main character of the book was the son of Daedalus the Conqueror, who was the the inheritor of his evil father's plundering and was born with these powers stolen from the Arknights because that was only capable because of all the evil that Daedalus the Conqueror did. And the son now, as a man, is coming to terms with what his father did, and he's it's not like he can get rid of these powers that he was granted with by foul means, and he's trying to do right by it. I think that would have been like a 9 out of 10 story.
See, I was thinking that if he turned it to the villain's tale where, okay, now I'm young again, so I'm going to get back all the stuff I lost. I think that would have been a much more fun story.
There was just such a weird. He didn't get redemption. He just realized that people can't be trusted. And he's like, well, an authoritarian system was built under the expectation that I could trust the people beneath me. Turns out I can't. Therefore, authoritarianism is bad. Like that. I mean, it's accurate, but like it wasn't a morally satisfying change to his character.
No.
He was just like, oh yeah, I learned it literally doesn't work. If people can be trusted more, like if he was given mind control powers and could mind control his subordinates, he'd instantaneously go back and do it because he doesn't think he ever made a mistake.
No, I don't think he thinks he made him. I think he's going to end up right back where he started from. If there is ever a second book, like logically, he would end up right back where he started.
Oh, there's going to be a second book. There's a graphic novel adaptation already out.
Ugh.
What I think is not going to happen is I don't think he's going to do a Star Wars knockoff. I don't think he has the time or the energy to do that.
Let's see. We've got comment. As I always thought that in his first draft, Dalen was the actual son, but then his powers would have been clearly in Jisoo territory.
Gary Stu territory is a myth. Most stories involve protagonists with bullshit powers.
Yes.
Like in this kind of genre. The Mary Sue Gary Sue label always just comes down to do they do everything wonderful? Which, okay, a lot of those skills should have been cut.
Mm-hmm.
But it just comes down to whether or not the reader likes the character.
So do you prefer your main characters overpowered or underpowered?
Depends on the genre. Like my main series, Bastion Blackstone, he's just a dude. He's not even a notably good cop. He's just the cop on the ground that actually shows up and actually tries to help. That's the reason he's the protagonist, and also because he shot up some people that needed to be shot up. But my second book, Ship of Fools, the main character is basically Master Chief. But I put him in a scenario. I intentionally made him overpowered because I put him in a scenario where his ability to kill literally everyone around him uncontested and nobody could stop him if he wanted to doesn't solve the problem. So I wanted that contrast there.
So getting into some other books, since you also do indie books, what indie book has surprised you the most?
So I don't read that. Oh, Paths of Core Manor. Where is that? I got that from Kursova, which is not one of the Kursova like anthologies.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, chat, I'm going to run him around his bookshelves.
Paths of Core Manor by Jim Brayfogle is you can tell that the editor was a short story editor because every chapter is in a sense a standalone short story, and it's just like one mythological fable after the next, telling this little like fairy tale knight and princess romance. And it was short, sweet. It was to the point. You kept getting satisfying resolutions to characters. I did provide some feedback that I think a couple of, like 3 chapters should have been compressed into 1 at the end because there was some stuff that just wasn't satisfying. Because it was this was Jim Brayfogle's first novel-length manuscript, as I understand. But honestly, this is one of the better books I've read this year, in my opinion. And it was from just some random guy, basically. Iron Age, he explicitly said, don't call him Iron Age. He's just an indie. It's from the Pulp Revolution.
Sometimes I wonder a little bit about Iron Age because some people in it seem to be genuinely trying and some people in it just seem to be contrarian.
Yeah, there's definitely some contrarianism. What gets lost in the conversation is the difference between someone putting in 100%, let's say, versus someone putting in a hobby amount of effort.
Well, some people are actually really dedicated to their hobby.
Yeah, but so I'm not sure I have the lexicon to really split out the two, but there's definitely a difference between someone like me that I am trying to write, like I said, a book so good that people will read it and enjoy it 100 years after I'm dead. I want to be compared against the best traditionally published books. That is what I want to get compared against, even if it's negatively for me, because I recognize I still need to improve.
Well, in the interest of some of the people in our chat who are writers or aspiring writers, what have you done outside of read other fiction works to improve your writing?
Well, honestly, the only 2 things you really need to do is read books. Well, I guess 3 things. You need to read fiction books. You need to think about why you liked them or why you didn't like them. And then you need to write a lot. I don't think that books on how to write help. I think they're actually actively poisonous to a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And they're even more insidious than that because if you start getting into YouTubers that do like top 10 mistakes indie writers make, your beta readers have probably watched those fucking videos
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to regurgitate stupid bad advice without understanding it. And then like it can lead to some bad conversations that I definitely had years ago until I managed to like smooth out my own issues. And then I kind of hit that point where people didn't feel it was appropriate to give like, you got to show, don't tell. Someone hasn't told me that in probably 5 years.
I mean, it is very rudimentary writing advice.
Some people do need to hear that.
And true. I've read a few books where that was definitely something that needed to be told to the author.
But I think, unfortunately, it is significantly easier to make a living by preying on aspiring writers than actually making a living as a writer.
As a note, Rachel, and I want to cover this, she says, I'd like to just be financially stable with book sales and call it a win.
She's only asking to be a top 0.01%.
Yes, it's a sad fact that most writers will never make a living off, like never live exclusively off their books. I think even Stephen King is still a teacher.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen King's paychecks come from film deals.
Yep. Because I finally saw the video pop up in my feed about all the weird stuff he's put in all his books, like the random orgies that he has in there.
People love bringing that one up.
That's
actually, here's a fourth thing I'll bring up for what will genuinely help aspiring writers get better. You may have seen maybe 2 weeks ago I put up a video about beta readers and how to get them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I advised was just find someone else in your situation and commit to a full manuscript swap. Because taking someone else's crap manuscript and explaining to them why and how it's crap will force you to understand your own ideas about what's good in a way that you would never get otherwise. And especially there's an entirely different relationship than I've had some authors treat their beta readers like it's a group writing exercise and they just like expect their beta readers to tell them how to fix it, which you will never improve if that's your attitude with beta readers. So
just one more thing, Rachel, don't feel bad about it. Honestly, having a day job is probably the best thing you can have as a writer. You need something to take your mind off the books and to give you time to think and have experiences, because that's what you're trying to portray in your book.
Right. Always write about life. You just want to spruce it up and be larger than life. That's why you have video games and shit.
Yep. And another one, I like this one. It's steal a man's wallet, you make him poor for a day. Teach a man to be an author, and he'll be poor for the rest of his life. The same is true about playing Magic the Gathering or Warhammer 40K.
Hey, whoa. All right, no. My spending on 40K is done. Thank you very much.
Well, it's done for this year.
Actually,
all
that's
13
not true. I still need
days.
to get a Mutolith Vortex Beast. Soon I'll be done.
I've always thought of, no matter how serious you are about writing, it basically is a hobby that will one day maybe pay if you're lucky. Like, no matter how serious you are, no matter how hard you work, until you are officially making a living at it, it's either a hobby or a side gig.
Yeah, I try to avoid labeling myself as a hobby writer. Mm-hmm. I would literally rather call myself a failed professional.
I just like to tell people I write because I want to tell fun stories.
You know, that's perfectly reasonable. The reason I was trying to get into that distinction between someone trying to be professional and someone writing as a hobby is there are people that don't have the time to like edit their books or something. They probably spent 4 years trying to get this one manuscript out because their life is a mess or whatever, and they just wanted to share it because they just had this story to tell. And I kind of agree. You probably shouldn't hold them to the same standard.
I actually reviewed a book like that a while back, which is probably one of the wildest books I've ever read. It's called Lime's Fable, and it's it's almost like some D&D party chasing after some homebrewed 7-eyed dragon that controls the weather. Like the party literally consists of a wizard that rides a sword, a woman who's like half elf, half something else that's a gunslinger, a guy who's half vampire, half werewolf, a guy who's made of dirt who eats rocks, a healer who's also made of dirt, and an old man with a sketchbook and a hatchet. This is the party that's going to kill the dragon.
That sounds like fun.
That it's a short little novella. There's I will warn you, the writing's a little bit rough because the guy's first language is in English, but it's probably one of the best 4 hours you'll spend listening to the wildest story you're ever going to listen to.
Right on.
That's you can find the review on my channel for anybody who's interested. It's Lime's Fable. It's got the authentic Oriental cover because it's actually written by my friend Rainer Chan.
Yeah, so that kind of gets me into my issue with editors, or more specifically, the worship of editors, because the right editor there is always an editor good enough to help the author. But the problem is, for the record, how many typos did you notice in my book?
Not too many.
There's like 3 or 4, I think. Right? I don't pay for copy editing because that would cost me hundreds of dollars to fix a handful of typos. But then people see a handful of typos and they go, "Oh, I heard this guy doesn't pay for a copy editor. What a fool," or something. It's like there's no return on that for me with typos. And when you get that's one type of editing because like I don't really make much. Then there's developmental editing, which honestly, I feel like developmental editing is more akin to coaching a writer, which gets into the point of like the writer has to have the good idea. People can come in and improve that idea, but the writer has to be responsible for the fundamental idea. When you read Shadow of the Conqueror, that's a very polished book. It just has dumb ideas in it. Like his editors knocked it out of the park for the crap.
Oh yeah. Dude, I'm sure they had to go through therapy for the PTSD of going through that monster.
So like if you have the good ideas, you're not going to gain much from an editor unless they're a really good editor. And then you're talking about spending more on that editor than your book is ever going to generate in sales.
Well, you see, I've got this trick called I had a CPA for a mother, so I know how to write all this stuff off in my taxes.
But even then, man, like it's not even close. Like, a good editor costs over $1,000.
It does.
Like if you get one that's like actually certified with the association, a novel of this size is like $1,300 to edit at least. Well, fun fact: I've made maybe a couple hundred. I've yet to pay off the cover art on this book.
Same here, but I also like to. I rather like to keep my books and showcase them and read through them sometimes because it's just this is something that I like to be proud of and I want to make it as good as I can possibly make it. But again, your writing is a lot cleaner than mine is before editing.
Right. If I was like a certain other book I've got sitting next to me, I probably shouldn't pick up, and there was a typo every page, I'd probably have to pay for a copy editor because I probably would see a difference in my sales.
I certainly hope that's not my book.
It is not. It is someone I am deciding if I'm going to advise that they sue to get their money back because they apparently paid someone for copy editing and they ran spell check. There is a error in the spacing every other page.
That
Super
is
annoying.
so kind of a funny but related story. So my first editor was a copy editor. They were a copyright editor, like they worked for a hospital, and
Okay.
they edited small documents like single pages. So I thought, okay, maybe that's all I need because I was very, very new. So my first edition of Battle Games is an adventure, let's call it, before I paid for an actual editor to go through. But writing is one of those things you're always learning, especially if you're
Oh
like
yeah.
me and you just dive straight into it.
There are when you get into it, there are so many elements about what makes a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I have people read my stories, whether it's after publication or before, I always try to ask them, "Hey, I know that book could have been better. You're
Mm-hmm.
being nice to me by saying it was great. There are problems in this book. Which for the record, I'm fine publishing a book with problems because like I do have to get books out there and I have to move on because often the reasons that a book isn't perfect are so foundational to the book that you have to start over to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I ask people, okay, so what identify something I did bad and give me a book recommendation that did that thing good. And it's like pulling teeth to get those recommendations. Nobody can answer that.
Well, I will tell you honestly, and in my opinion, because I was honest in my review about it, I really did enjoy the book, and that's the highest praise I can give is that I will recommend it to other people. It's just like with so the most recommended book I give people is "Eye of the Universe" by Matt Waterhouse, and
Okay.
it's a really creepy book. It's a really good book though. It's about a guy who's on an intergalactic cruise ship, and he wakes up and everybody else on the ship is dead, and the power's failing, and the water's failing, and he's starting to go a little crazy, and he's pushing around a corpse in a wheelchair and talking to it. It's a crazy story. There are problems with it,
Yeah.
but it's
Good
still a
stories have
really
problems.
yeah. But anything worth reading, anything that you're really going to enjoy is always going to have flaws. And it's going to be the more special for those flaws because you're never going to make a book that's 100% perfect. There's never going to be a story, like even the great stories, all have flaws. The best stories, the ones you'll remember for the rest of your life, they've all got problems. And you can't tell me of a book that doesn't have problems.
Well, one of my earlier videos, I read and reviewed Pride and Prejudice, which is one of the most famous and applauded books of English.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe 1.5 tea parties too long. It really drags on. It really is just a story of explicitly, with the exception of Elizabeth, the main character, stupid women gossiping. And I feel fine saying that because that's literally the diagnosis of her father. He's just like, the rest of your sisters are stupid. You're the one that's smart.
Well, no favorites in that family, I can tell you right now. That's a bug squashing book if I ever saw one. I had it on my shelf for a while.
Oh, it
That
was really good though, despite those issues.
I'll take your word for it. I didn't read it because at first I tried The Count of Monte Cristo, and
Whoa, dude!
yeah, that's a
I couldn't
word
finish it.
brick.
I
That's
could
in
not finish it.
fact, that's not even a word brick. That's a word cinder block.
Yeah, it's like an anchor.
That's a self defense weapon. You use that on a burglar.
And it makes me want to cry because when he's with the old man in the prison whose name escapes me because it's been a few years now. When he's in the prison, that had to be the best portion of literature I've ever consumed in my life. And then Rome happened. It went from the best thing I'd ever read to one of the most boring slogs I'd ever read.
Yep. But it's one of those books that's going apparently stands the test of time, even though it.
I think it's because the good part is very early on, and you can talk about that part and pretend that you read the rest.
So, what's the absolute worst book you've ever read?
I'd rather not say because it was another indie author who I don't want to drag that up again.
Okay. Well, what's the worst mainstream book you've ever read?
I mean, I can think of some absolutely. There is I think it was an indie book from that I found on Twitter that I'm still mad about it because it was like Ocean Slayers or something, a lit RPG racing book. And the cover is like a hot girl in skin tight leather leaning against a sports car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, all right, yeah, I'm in for this. And then I get into the book, and like the first thing that happens is she wrecks, and she spends the rest of the book crippled. And the actual character that does things is her gay brother. I was like, how the fuck do you screw this up this badly?
Oh, that's a Disney level bait and switch right there. That's just amazing. I was gonna say A Handbook for Mortals is the worst one I've ever been through.
Okay, actually mainstream, sufficiently advanced magic.
I think I've heard of that, but I don't know what it's about.
It is about autism and homosexuality and a misunderstanding of copyright law and a hatred of religion, all crammed together. And it's not because I have anything against autists or homosexuals or anything, but it's just like out of absolutely nowhere, the social reject who can't function is like, oh, actually, I'm gay. And then, like, the book just comes to a screeching halt to deal with the fact that he doesn't understand his emotions about this exotic brown-skinned man interested in him. It's like, bro, this is supposed to be about diving into dungeons and stealing magic relics. What the fuck am I reading?
Oh, Lord. So, just in case you ever get a chance, I still think Handbook for Mortals might beat it because it is a book about a witch who never does any magic, who goes from the deep south to Las Vegas to star in a magic show. And it's all her Valley Girl exposition talking about all how stuff is around her, crushing on hunky boys and name dropping bands. And there's a whole section near the end where she's literally unconscious and dying, and she's still narrating the book. Yes, they are literally about to perform a ritual where they stab her with a dagger, and she's the one narrating everything going on. And she's still heaping on the exposition.
Weird. Okay, so you want to talk craft for a moment?
Yep.
I have an epic fantasy web novel for free available on Royal Road called The Undying Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And that is mostly a story of like, all right, this one guy is going to go from absolutely nothing. He is a crippled, abandoned son of a miner out in a colony, and he is going to legitimately conquer the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some like Merlin, King Arthur stuff where he gets training and such, and there's a whole scheme to it and wars and such. He does work into, stuff. It's mostly about him. But kind of like 3.5 books into it, I was like, I want to change of pace. So I'm going to write about what these other guys are doing over here. And I'm going to not just write it like normal, because I had Bram Stoker's Dracula on the mind. So I wanted to write it epistolary. I wanted to write it as a horror. So I wrote it mostly as the journal entries of the new head of the Abbey that comes under siege of this troll.
Mm-hmm.
And spoilers, whatever. At the end, it's implied that he's killed, and it's his diary, which means I had to find a way at the very end to justify why he has the time to sit there and write the diary, explaining that he's about to die, while also establishing that there is something that happens immediately after that resolves the story with enough like context that the reader can put it together, but without him actually writing what the answer is, to leave it ambiguous of what happened to him.
That's a tough call.
It was one of the trickiest things I've ever had to write in my life. like I still have people confused about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the answer is given in the other parts of the web novel. It's just if you try to honestly recreate someone retelling a story like that, the limitations that imposes just screws up stories bad.
Epistoral is not the easiest way to write. That my second book is, or my second series is Epistoral. So, but it's about a guy relearning how to do everything. So he doesn't get killed. It's not that tricky, but I have to convey these other characters that he's living with through his eyes, but still make them engaging.
Right. Dude, I wish I could write a book like Memento.
I have not read Memento.
Watched. It's a movie, right?
Oh, I knew
It's
it was
a
a
movie
movie.
told backwards because he has short-term memory loss.
Mm.
It is a cool movie. Highly recommend it. Every creator should watch that and pick it apart.
There's supposedly a lot of movies like that, but I have the number of movies I've seen that I'm supposed to see would let's just say everywhere I've ever worked, people just kind of cringe. Is like, oh, did you see such and such movie? It's classic, and I'm like, nope. Oh, well, what about this one? Nope. What about that one? Nope.
I feel that. I don't watch nearly as many movies as some people do. But on the flip side, I have consumed a lot more like actually educational content than anyone else that watches movies.
So, in my opinion, the most nefarious show ever made is How It's Made. Because if you don't put commercials between the episodes, you could set somebody on a couch and just let them watch that till they die. They will not move from that couch. They won't go get food. They won't go get water. They will sit there until the episodes stop.
Yeah, that was fun to watch.
I maintain that we can put that in prisons and just hook people up to a continuous IV and just let them serve out their sentence. And like one day we wake them up, it's like, no, dude, it's been 20 years. You can leave. What? Who am I? I want to build a tent.
That could actually be so. One of the things I haven't explored in any of my published Bastion novels, my cyberpunk stuff, is what it's like to be in prison in Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
In an unreleased manuscript that just isn't up to quality because it was earlier in my development, so it's not going anywhere. I put in some work on that, and because Sebastian has virtual reality, most people have neural implants, like they've replaced smartphones, right?
Right.
So I was just toying with the idea of like, well, what kind of virtual reality would prisoners be given? Because it's really not prison if you can just go out on the internet, or even if it's internal to the prison, if you can just like, if you're given VR games to play in with the thousands of other people in that prison, is that really prison? Because part of it is supposed to be punitive, except for juvie, which is literally just detaining them until their brain develops. So I need to decide what the actual solution there is.
I think they came up with it recently. There was that article about the company that decided they could figure out how to make people lucid dream. So they had to.
Are you talking about that absolute nightmare fuel of we're going to drug you up and put you in a dream state to give you 1,000 years in an afternoon?
No, I'm talking about the one where they're going to make people do programming in their sleep. Like they found a way to make people lucid dream. So they're like, okay, since you can lucid dream, now we can make you work while you're asleep.
No.
So you could, that could be like, they have to do data entry or data sorting or data mining. Like they're basically put into a sleep state, but they're forced to work.
Dude, so Bastion was supposed to be a dystopia, but I can't keep up with real life.
We have become a truly decadent society where the elites no longer have any kind of basis of what the normal person goes through.
Yeah, literally, like at this point, there's only two issues with living in Bastion. One is the air quality is pretty low, but that's like most cities nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And two is you probably have a studio, like a micro studio apartment, like most cities nowadays. But on the flip side, it doesn't really matter you have a closet for an apartment because you can plug into.
Oh, it sounds like I don't want to quote it because I didn't like the book. Kind of like Ready Player One.
You want to talk about Ready Player One for a bit?
Sure, let's talk about that trash book.
It wasn't trash. It was nostalgia bait.
Oh, absolute. You could tell that because
actually did quite a few things well.
The story. So it was just whenever he was describing every little thing from, oh, this is the such and such from this movie with this detail, and I couldn't stand it because it just brought everything to a screeching halt.
Well, the thing is that you were trying to consume it wrong then. Because Ready Player One was not meant to be broad appeal. It caught more traction than it deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's basically an autism book about the 80s for people that didn't live in the 80s.
I'm so glad to know there's all these autism books out there that just simply aren't.
There's a lot more autism on the internet than people realize.
I just meant in literature.
But the characters kind of suck. He's not like, I've tried reading these other books and they're actually just terrible. Like if you take out the nostalgia bait, there's nothing underlying it. The movie was such a disaster though. The biggest screw up was the inversion about what's her name, the love interest and the friend from Detroit. Because in the book, it's actually in the correct sequence
mm-hmm.
of I don't even remember his name. Percy falls in love with the girl, and his best friend H or whatever his name is, who's just this huge dude, bro, is just like, bro, like you can't be like this. You don't know what they're actually like. And he goes, no, man, it's fine. And then H reveals himself to be like a 300-pound black woman.
Yeah,
like
a big black lesbian,
misrepresenting who they were the entire time, even though they've known each other for years.
That just stopped me cold. Like the moment you're like, oh, it's a big fat black woman. It wasn't even that it was bad. It was just so jarring. I'm like, wait,
well, why? It was supposed to shock you. But the thing is, that was supposed to come first because it made Percy go, I see the danger, because like they're just friends, right?
Right.
Percy and H. And he got that extra reveal as a warning. And he said, no, it doesn't matter. I'm in love with her. And then he goes and finds her IRL, and she is actually exactly the way she looks in game. And basically that's the reward for his virtue. And like, no, I want her personality. And actually she is cute. The movie reversed those two things. He finds out that the girl is super cute first.
Yeah, I could see how that would ruin the sequence.
Yeah. So that is just like my clear evidence of the people adapting that to the movie were incompetent idiots.
Well, I want to be perfectly frank. I did not much care for the book. I heard the second book had some issues as well. I didn't read it. Do what?
I could not finish that book. It was so bad.
Oh, it's getting very difficult to find good contemporary fiction, like published by the big houses.
So part of the problem, I think, is the system that was developed in the 20th century didn't scale up to the 21st century. let alone the output of ChatGPT generated stories getting sent at them.
Mm-hmm.
When publishing houses and agents started taking queries by email, their volume of slush that they had to go through must have gone up 100 times, because it used to actually be difficult to print out a 300-page manuscript, bind it, and actually get it sent to actually deliver and arrive in a New York office.
Yep.
And it used to cost money. And because it no longer costs money, which it has nothing to do with the publishing house getting paid to read slush, it was to slow down authors from just mass producing and sending out crap. Back then they were able to operate at a rate where they could actually absorb the cost of paying people to torture themselves by reading a slush pile. Because slush piles of all the submitted manuscripts are terrible.
Yep.
It's absolute misery.
See, that's what we should be using AI for, is to sort the slush piles, not
yes.
to generate the slush pile.
Yes. And by the way, that Hollywood has the same problem where there are 10,000 unread scripts for every movie that gets made.
Mm-hmm.
And studios are jumping at, let's just get rid of the writers and replace them with AI, instead of just like, okay, what do we already have that is like 10 out of 10 diamonds in the rough that we just haven't literally been able to find? But Hollywood is stupid, as has already been established. But the torture of slush reading, I think, opened them up to ideological subversion, because only someone with a political agenda would volunteer to torture themselves like that.
True. Only somebody who was truly demented would agree to that.
I mean, it does go both ways. Like you can have like conservative publishing houses that are just like obsessed with like return to tradition.
You don't have to be you don't have to be one side or the other to be demented.
Right. But when your bottom line of employees has to be ideologically skewed, motivated, essentially, that you're just going to lose the competency. It's just going to all bleed out and fall apart.
I do imagine that slush pile readers, even if they don't start off weird, eventually get there.
Not to mention, even if you're writing great stuff, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it out of the slush pile.
Nope.
Yeah. They might read it and just be like, the last 10 manuscripts I read was a male lead. Yep. I am throwing out every male lead until I find a female, because I want to read a female lead for a fucking change of pace.
This is why I think the indie scene, as it's going, should be the kind of de facto societal slush pile, because just the publishing houses shouldn't be trying to function like they were functioning 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
What they should be doing is they should be kind of perusing YouTube and all these people who are like what we're doing, reading these books.
There are small publishers doing that.
Yeah.
Like I have guests on my show regularly that started on Royal Road and now have publishing deals because of Royal Road.
Yep.
That is actually the reason anime is succeeding and manga is outselling Western comics.
Yep. Because
they actually have a grassroots funnel with a methodology to filter for quality.
Mm-hmm.
They have a massive base of amateurs putting up crap on web novel forums. And then what rises to the top, because people know they're reading amateur crap and they put up with typos and sloppy and weird stuff. And, oh my God, what is Sheltier doing to this human? Oh my God. Oh my God. And then they say, all right, so we actually found this top 10%, this top 1% cream of the crop. We're going to pick them up, give them an editor that is trained, and we're going to cut out all the disgusting stuff. And we're going to package these into books for sale and create light novels out of the web novels.
I will admit, Overlord is one of my favorite light novel series.
Oh, dude. So you see, I have Overlord 1 and 2. I really liked 1. 2 was almost unreadable because it changed tone.
Yep.
Let me finish explaining the funnel first. The top 1% of light novels get turned into manga. The top 1% of manga gets turned into anime. So you are at the rarefied 0.00001% of possible stories is what's being turned into anime. And then Americans are shocked that anime is better than Western cartoons.
Well, considering that the Western stuff is just, hey, this currently fits whatever we're trying to push today, but we're going to throw some more committee designed crap into this. So, well, that's just how it is nowadays.
So Overlord,
Yep.
book 1 is this fantastic lament for a Dungeons and Dragons group that fell apart.
Yep.
Hit me right in the feels because it happened basically every other semester in college. Oh, I was playing with someone who was a senior. They graduated and moved to a different state. This person is now, we were all free on Tuesdays. Now, this person has a lab. This person has a job. They're all scattered different days, and it's dead. And then repeat for 4 years straight. So book 1 of Overlord just hit me, and it was great. And then book 2 starts Ainz being an idiot.
Yep.
And he never stops being an idiot.
Yep.
So I don't know why you like it.
Well, escapism.
Have you tried better series like Akari?
I have not tried. The one I read most recently, because I don't go diving into the light novels too often, because I feel, even though I enjoy them, they're kind of like junk food.
No, some of them. Quite literally, yes.
Well, the one I was reading recently and I had to put down because I just got too wrapped up in it and burnt out on it was the Jobless Reincarnation. I don't know what it's called in Japanese. I know what it's. Yeah, I can't pronounce it. Sorry. I even took Japanese. I can't pronounce it. But I really like the series, even though it's shamelessly perverted.
Yeah, I have that conversation with my friends all the time because if you compare Mushoku Tensei to like any other series in that genre, you can clearly see that the author Mushoku Tensei actually understands history, economies, culture differences, how the world used to work, what the impact of magic would be. It is like the most realized world of any fantasy series you're going to find.
Oh, it's delightful.
However, he's a pedophile.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, so is probably Stephen King. So.
So yeah, but when you give me the choice between Mushoku Tensei and he is stealing the panties of 12-year-old girls to sniff versus I got kicked out of the heroes party and it's like copy pasted generic German houses in a generic forest of copy pasted deciduous trees where they just like where you can just tell this person has no world experience whatsoever and nothing makes sense. All they know is how to make a girl cute and endear you to a romance, but the world is nonsense. Yeah, I kind of lean towards the creepy teenage reincarnator.
So I liked Jobless Reincarnation. One of the things I like most about it is the man god as the villain, because I think he makes a fantastic villain.
Okay, for the record, I read the manga and I'm up to date on the anime. I was up to date on the manga. I am where the anime stopped. So I'm still in the Magic Academy school arc.
Okay.
No spoilers, bro, please.
I won't spoil, but you're close. I just want to say the way he's set up is, I think, a phenomenal villain just because of how ineffective but ever present he is. But I'm not going to spoil it for you. You're a ways away from it, really. You're not too far from it because it's I think it's right around the time he's getting his second wife that this is becoming an issue. So
I don't even know how he could be the villain at this point. I don't want to know.
I
think God hasn't done enough unless he's the one that caused the teleportation incident.
I'm about at the end of the series and they still don't know who caused that. Yes. I think I'm at book 22 out of 24. And it's
Uh,
never really covered.
for the record, the light novel series I'm reading and is why I have so many series. I am in High School DxD, Konosuba, Grimgar Fantasy of Ash, Bakemonogatari, and Spice and Wolf.
Grimgar was pretty good. I thought it was going to be darker than it was.
Okay. I need a spoiler. How far are you in Grimgar?
I've only seen the anime. I haven't picked up the light novel
No.
series.
Dude, I just read volume 10 of Grimgar and I want to punch the author in the face.
What I really want to pick up is Saga of Tanya the Evil, the light novel series.
I don't get it. I don't get that one.
I just like evil characters. I like reading about like psychopaths, but portrayed as psychopaths, not trying to redeem them. Like just let them go wild where they are.
So I'm actually like the day after Christmas, I'm going to have to buy a presumably expensive manga because next year I want to write a monster horror novella, a tie-in to Ship of Fools actually. And there's a manga I should buy because it is simply that famous and influential. Can you guess what author / artist I'm talking about?
I'm going to let you tell me because there's quite a few.
I'm pretty sure there's only one that can possibly be named in the context of he is that famous because I'm referring to Junji Ito.
I have not read any of his stuff.
I haven't either, and that's the problem.
The most expensive manga I have is the first 5 of the Lupin the Third series, which are all going for a little over $50 right now.
What?
Well, my sister got them for me as a birthday present when I turned 18. And not trying to age myself, but that's when manga was first starting to get big over here.
I know.
But I went looking it up the other day, and it's like, well, these are all $50 a piece. Why? I mean,
dude, out of print books go up.
Yeah. Well, I think they're still in print. Well, I don't think the English versions are in print anymore, actually.
Yeah, that's the problem. So I'm actually working on a short story right now. When one of the ideas in the story, it's supposed to be like an uncaused apocalypse. Or more precisely, it is the apocalypse we're probably facing where population is just going to collapse. There's no violence is going to happen. It's just we're going to look around one day and realize nobody knows how to maintain anything.
Oh, competency crisis.
Yes, like the end state of a competency crisis. And one of the things is that as people aren't reading anymore, they're going to stop printing books, and then the books that exist are going to decay. And then people are going to be like, "Oh, that's not a problem. There are digital archives." And then one day they're just going to be like, I can't get to Gutenberg. What's up with that? And they're going to find out that it was like one guy managing that website and he died alone and his servers rusted. And they're like, I don't know how to recover data off a crashed server. We just lost 50,000 ebooks. Does someone else have a backup? No. Maybe someone in Europe. How do we talk to Europe? And then there's just going to be no books left.
Just curious, are you subscribed to the What If Altis channel?
No, I'll take a link in the private chat and I'll check him out.
He would definitely help you with what you're trying to do there. I'll pull up the link while we're doing this. He covers a lot of the competency crisis.
Prediction, Rachel.
He actually handles it in a pretty good way considering he's a Zoomer. He's like a really young Zoomer.
Did you not see Rachel's comment?
Idiocracy.
Yeah, that's a prediction.
I don't think we're going to get as bad as Idiocracy. I think it's one of those cycle things. It'll all come back around. We'll lose a lot, but we'll eventually get back to where we're trying to go. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this loaded up here. Now, I'm a little tired of the post-apocalyptic and heading to apocalyptic stuff. So
most people are.
Well, it's kind of
sad. Like Bastion is technically a post-apocalyptic. I don't know how much you checked out about my main series, but it takes place in a megacity, like a Judge Dredd style megacity.
Mm-hmm.
And it is after what everyone calls the apocalypse, where everything collapsed, like 90% of the human population died because of 2012. Because when I started this timeline on this planning, I was graduating high school. I was like, Mayan calendar 2012. What if it actually was the end of the world? And my ideas kind of came from there because I figured I needed to pick one event to fork my timeline off of because it's supposed to be future Earth, but I can't constantly be playing catch up with modern events.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, all right, in 2012, there was a terrorist attack that released a virus from a CDC research lab down in Texas. And then it got out in the wild and it synergized with some stuff and people died. And after that, that is why people have rebuilt into this different corporatocracy relationship with government. And, it's 120 years in the future after that. And that's why all this technology is advanced at slightly different paces and all that. So it is a cyberpunk future, but it is because it's after an apocalypse. It's how I justify a lot of the technological development pacing, and I think it gives me a lot of freedom for building things.
Hey, your post-apocalyptic series sounds a little more advanced than mine. Mine happened after something we can't discuss on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I was when the virus that can't be named was getting out, and I was following the reports of what happened over in that Asiatic industrial city. I was just like, did somebody steal my notes? What is going on right now?
I actually took my idea. So I travel in some odd circles because of where I live. And there's a lot of people who really deep into the conspiracy theory. So I'm always at work and people are showing them to me and coming by my office and like, oh, dude, look, check this out. Look what's going to happen in September, June. What? So I started following these. I'm like, if I took these as a jumping off point, I could make a fantastic story. And so I followed all these to the logical conclusion and was like, okay, everybody in the city is dead except for 2 people.
Okay, so did you watch my video on Friday by chance? The one about zombie apocalypse math?
I did not. I was working a double.
Fair enough. If you put a restriction on yourself that the apocalypse is not the end of the world, that means you need to have a scenario where 50,000 humans survive because that's carrying capacity for genetic disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping the population above 50,000 and still hitting the apocalypse tropes is really hard, actually.
Yep. So my story was the way I set it up was a little bit different. It's so it wasn't the virus that got them all, it was something else, but it spread like an STD. So everybody but this one freelance programmer who just was a shut-in his whole life and some old woman who was a widow, everybody else died. Like they all went crazy and they died or they fled the city. So he's got to figure out how to survive in basically this pristine city that's completely abandoned. Like there are other people which you meet in the second book, but he's the only one that was really in the city. So it's just a story about him figuring out how to get water, grow food.
Is the last survivor.
I thought it was a fun little story because he goes from being like a guy with no muscle and never seeing the sun to actually being a competent individual who can do stuff. What we got?
We were doing great at 140,000 population until the nukes unrolled and all the malls went off. Not quite sure where that's going.
Oh, Lord. Actually, I think as far as like having to keep that 50,000, you don't have to keep them all in one location right away.
50,000 people in a breeding population.
Like not right away. Like they could eventually discover each other, but you can have smaller communities that would commute or trade or whatnot.
Yeah, but that makes it even harder because let's say an EMP goes off, mass starvation happens, and then you end up with a scattered set of communes around the country, like an archipelago civilization, right?
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to want to reach out to each other because there is no overarching authority to stop raiders. So you would actually need significantly more people in that little archipelago to have effectively 50,000 interbreeding.
Well, you'll end up with like the blue people of Kentucky.
I mean, yeah, if you want to portray them all developing genetic disorders or just drifting, and that's how you build your future sci-fi fantasy, where some people are elves or Hylians and dwarves have come out and orcs and stuff, maybe.
Well, it could also just be that certain resources are in certain areas, and so that's why towns spring up in different locations, and there's travel between them. But let's not get into the whole structure of post-apocalyptic society. And
no, man, hold on. I can go get some liquor and we can talk about this.
Oh well, hang on. I got whiskey and spiced rum. So,
that's not it. Not on a Monday night.
Actually, I did spend a lot of time figuring out so. Having gotten an engineering degree, I figured out where I could go look for all this stuff. But the hardest part of writing a series like that is not what do they need to know, it's where are they going to find it.
Yeah, that's something I tried looking into because one of the conceits of my main setting Bastion is that it is one city with 1 billion people in it, and they can't leave.
Ew.
And in making that survive and work and getting the industry and like enough power and shelter and construction equipment and food and waste disposal, and once you start working in all the things an economy needs, it got really complicated. Like, I really enjoy the world building behind the scenes. But spoiler alert, it requires like half the population to be outside the city actually on government contracts. Because you have to have people out in the farm fields, you have to have people managing the mining installations, the oil refineries, managing the various international ports, on and on and on. There are things that you have to have people spread out. You can't put people in one city and have it work.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how cities used to function. Everybody would go in the cities at night, and then they would go tend the fields and stuff when in the morning. But you stayed in the city or the town because it had the walls and you were safe. Unless you were in Paris during the, I think it was the 1600s, and all those wolves were attacking.
That's a story I don't know.
Oh, so this has actually happened, and I want to write a book about it, like an actual little short novella. There's a story about a wolf called Courtard. He was twice the size of the other wolves, and they had this really bad winter. And then it traveled into the summer and it didn't warm up enough to grow anything. So they just kind of went right into the next winter. So the wolves were starving and started eating people. Well, Courtard, they called him Courtard because in French that means bobtail. Because he got his tail caught in the portcullis and lost it. But he was roughly twice the size and he was rust red. So he just kind of leads the other wolves, and they literally laid siege to the city of Paris. And the story, like, this really happened, and it actually ends with the captain of the guard of Paris and Courtard dying in a fight in the middle of the city. It's an awesome story, and I feel like it could make a really good horror story. Like, Paris is apparently always had trouble with like weird animals and wolves because of their location. Like, England was able to kill all their wolves, but France can't because they've got Russia over there. They've got, land connecting to Africa. So all sorts of weird animals somehow find their way up into France.
Interesting. I thought they just had an issue with politicians that needed to be sprayed with manure.
France has a lot of... France is doing... they're not just the French doing it. It's also the Germans. They share something in common this time around.
I didn't know the German farmers were based.
Yeah, the German farmers are getting real based. They're also spraying manure. Not so much the Norwegian ones. They're just blocking the roads. But I mean, hey, I got to cheer on the farmers wherever they are because they make all the food.
I wonder what's going to happen to that guy down in Panama that interrupted the highway blockage.
You're going to have to be more specific.
The boomer that pulled out his metric tool.
Oh, the carbon reducer. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. All I know is he got arrested.
Well, he was the first of many because now they're just kind of like pulling him out of the streets and beating them. And the
Yeah,
world,
no, blocking streets is not a good idea. People are there's typically people on the edge of murder in any traffic jam.
living in interesting times certainly might be trying on the wallet, but is not going to be any shortage of delightful stories to read about.
Yeah, that's the problem. I have to compete with the news, man.
Oh, well, good luck there because, between the politicians and the idiots in the street and the people just fed up with everything, you're going to have a hard time.
That's why I'm pivoting my stories to be more wholesome and heroic, actually.
Dino, Chris, I do agree. Amish food is amazing. We have a little Amish shop by where I live, and they make the best pepper cheese.
Nice. I use their butter. It's a lot better than what you can buy in the store.
Oh, almost everything they have is better. Though some of the stuff is exactly the same because they don't make everything there. I still want to go get an Amish bed, like a whole bunch of Amish furniture, since I just got a new house.
Dude, I don't know. If you buy, like, if you can afford it, you can buy just like an actual top end mattress.
No, not the mattress, just like the bed frame.
Bed frame. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, like I'm still going memory foam. Nah, I got like a 30-inch memory foam mattress. That thing is amazing.
So my day job is engineering,
Mm-hmm.
and when my brother moved out, I moved my bed set to the guest room. And then I was just like, it's a mattress. I will use it 8 hours a day, every day of my life. Of all the things in my house to spend money on, it's got to be that, followed by improving my shower. So I dropped bills. I bought the best bed money could buy. Oh, it's amazing. So good, man.
I'm going to tell you something that might make you a little jealous. So my mom's a CPA. So she does work for all these different businesses. So she was doing business for a furniture store and they owed her a lot of money. So I got her to get me the best mattress they had by paying her through the money they owed her. And then I gave her a discounted amount of cash. So I got a $3,000 mattress for about $1,000.
You just said you were on memory foam.
It is a memory foam.
This was a $3,000 memory foam mattress?
This was a while ago.
Okay. Yeah, mine's like natural latex and stuff and all kinds of water wicking nonsense.
Yeah, this mattress is getting replaced probably in the next year because it's now roughly 10 years old. But it's been a wonderful mattress.
I spent so many years of my life on an IKEA futon.
Same.
The funny thing is I slept great on that brick. Like, nobody believes it, but I slept really good on the IKEA pull-out futon.
You had IKEA, I had Walmart, but it was back when Walmart had actual wood. Now, it was pine. It was a pine futon couch that folded out into, like, I didn't even know there were king-size futons till I went to work at a warehouse. So before I went back to school and got my engineering degree, I did a lot of crap jobs in warehouses and factories. And I worked at this one place that sold futons, like all wood furniture and futons. There are king-sized and queen-sized futons and futon frames. They're made out of wood. They weigh about 250 pounds, but they do exist.
Dude, I hate whenever a friend asks me to help them move and I find out they have a pull-out bed couch. I'm just like, give me a chainsaw. We're destroying this thing. It's like 500 pounds.
That's because of all the metal.
But they don't want to get rid of it ever, even though they've destroyed the cushions.
And they're never comfortable.
Ugly as sin. It's like, yeah, but it's a pull-out couch, man.
And nobody wants to sleep with that bar running across their spine.
Oh my god. And not to mention, I'm 6'3".
Yep.
I've never found a pull-out couch that was actually long enough.
You're about an inch taller than me, and yeah, I know what you mean. I would honestly rather sleep on an air mattress than a pull-out couch.
Oh, air mattresses are so cold, though. Like, you basically need a sleeping bag on top of an air mattress, or for it to be summer.
Yep. Oh Lord, I just remember as a teenager just sleeping. You could just sleep anywhere. I mean,
Oh, the good old days.
You could just sleep on a bare wood floor with a blanket.
Dude, I once did a trip with some friends, and turned out that it was like four dudes in a room with like two twins. They weren't even queens. They were like two twin beds that we were staying in a motel. And I got paired with the heavy guy. I was like,
Oh,
nah. And I just took my pillow and I slept on the carpet.
yep.
I took a shower first thing in the morning because it was like a motel carpet. But I was like, yeah, this is better than trying to share 2.5 inches of space with him.
Oh, so my very first apartment, I had just signed the lease and I was so excited to stay there. I just grabbed a blanket and a pillow and I slept on the threadbare carpet in the bedroom. Nothing else in the house but a loaf of bread and some cheese. And I'm like,
Dude, you
yes.
were the meme of guys will literally live like this and say there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, it was amazing. I was so excited.
Just plug in your computer and get one chair.
Oh, that's where I discovered World of Warcraft. And I was sleeping on a futon. And I had, if you remember,
Set up the futon.
And I remember I had the Walmart desk, like the one with the weird curved top. It was only big enough for one monitor and it had the little thing out for your keyboard. It might have cost $20. It was just rickety old pop metal and a piece of cardboard that was pressed together on top. Oh, I had the best time back then. It's amazing what it took to keep you comfortable when you were, late teens, early 20s.
Dude, I spend so much time thinking about people. So, for example, I still watch PewDiePie videos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you do, but he made a big deal around the time where they got robbed, which maybe it was cope for him. But he lives a very minimalist lifestyle where he just doesn't own things that he doesn't need. And I kind of respect that. And it constantly makes me look around and go, do I really need X, Y, and Z? Like, do I need 7 bookshelves? Do I need to hoard these books? And I kind of feel surrounded, like I have things I can't bear to get rid of because, like, you go to my upstairs, like my entire upstairs is a painting studio. And it's just like, well, I don't want to be unable to paint. So yeah, I have all these supplies and it's occupying this huge amount of space in my house.
Mm-hmm. So I'm getting ready to do a hybrid thing. So I've got, I went and bought a house and I wanted to make sure it was just the right size where I couldn't have anybody else like, oh, I need a place to crash. It's got a room that's an office. It's got a room that's a bedroom. It's got a living room and a kitchen. And then it's got like a little pantry and that's about it. And it's got enough land I can do my gardening. But I'm going to do kind of a mix of minimalism and like the old, not like, I want to say like late 1800 stuff. Like I'm going to redo the whole house, but it's going to be like the real wood and like the really comfortable furniture and the nice light. It's like, if I'm going to live here, I want it to be the best, most comfortable thing I can have.
Dude,
So like I can, like, I want it to feel like you could come in, sit down, smoke a cigar in a brass ashtray, like the real classy stuff. Because I'm like, if I'm going to be minimalist, I want it to be the best of the minimalist stuff I can get.
Yeah, I made a series of decisions in my living situation that has led to a series of trade-offs, basically. Like, for example, how big of a kitchen table do you need? I live by myself right now. How big of a kitchen table do you think I need?
Big enough to play Magic the Gathering if you get a few friends come over.
False. I have a kitchen table with an insert leaf capable of seating 10 people.
Oh my lord!
Because there is it was a hand-me-down from my parents when they upgraded. But because there is a chance that I'll be hosting my family because we did a rotation. So even though I live by myself, there are holidays every now and then where I have 8 people pile in.
Right.
And what am I supposed to do? Like pull out a card table and put half of the family on that? So no. So I end up with a lot of furniture that goes unused typically.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have it for when you need it, but living minimalist is more about not getting things you don't need. But I mean, you do need, like, you want to entertain your family.
What I need is a battle-ready replica gross messer blade. Okay, I need it. It's a tax write-off, so I need it for my videos. I can't call myself a fantasy author if I don't own a sword. Guns aren't enough.
I used to own a sword. I gave it to my brother when I turned 30. So
I think my family has an heirloom sword that I think was actually used in like the Spanish American War and actually killed people.
Oh, now with authentic bloodstains.
My parents won't give it to me.
I can't imagine why.
No idea.
So Rachel has an interesting question. Are swords tax deductible? It depends on what you do. Technically, if you use it as a prop, you could probably get away with saying it was necessary. Yes. Now, this is not tax advice. I'm not giving tax advice. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not a CPA, blah, 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 all the usual disclosures. But so I would advise, if you really want to be this is just my advice. You don't have to take this advice. If you really want to be an author, talk with the CPA about what you can write off, because there's something to be said for running a business that loses money, because you can get a lot of that money back in your taxes.
That's I assume is general advice for the checks. They definitely do that.
Yep. Now, again, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just telling you to talk to a CPA and see.
I actually don't take advantage of it. So the problem is taxes are weird, and my understanding is unless you're above the standard deduction amount, it's better to just take the standard deduction. So because the IRS doesn't want to have to look at what you itemized. And honestly, my expenses just aren't that high because I don't buy that much. Maybe I should be, expensing every single book I buy if I do a review video of it. Because that would total up to a couple $100 a year, right?
So I do it the exact opposite way. I will sit down and determine how much I'm probably going to pay in taxes that year. I'm like, okay, this money is either going to go to the government, or I'm going to spend this on my business that isn't making any money. So it's like, okay, I've got this much money to spend on like my editing or my cover art or the books that I'm going to review, the subscription for Audible so I can listen while I'm at work, so I can get a few more videos in, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I should probably be taking more advantage of that.
Well, again, you can also take a risk with it because, IRS crackdown. You want to have everything itemized.
Yeah, IRS audits are punitive at this point. There's the weird thing of like the IRS doesn't actually want to audit you because they lose money by doing that.
Well, what a lot of them will do is they'll send you an amount that it's just easier to pay than to go through with the audit. Like they say, oh, you owe us another $500. It's like, are you really going to bother with the audit, or are you going to send them $500?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a shakedown.
Well, I mean, that's what governments do best. Allegedly. I didn't say that, YouTube. Don't delete me.
All right.
So let's talk about something that's more book related. Let me pull up my great big list of questions here. So we were talking about we're in a kind of a paradigm shift. Where do you see entertainment going in the next 10 years? Downhill?
So let's see here. What do I think is going to... Now, that's actually a really good question that I should put a lot of genuine thought into. The problem, which maybe I can identify the solution by starting with the problem. The problem is current entertainment is cheaper than it should be because it's exploiting creators. And I don't just mean authors that are underpricing their books because other authors are underpricing their books and nobody is getting enough royalties off their sales, right? I'm talking mostly about the amount of effort that goes into genuinely good and entertaining YouTube channels that are just fighting each other for ad revenue that doesn't exist. The internet was built on a model of ad revenue, but that got exploited so hard by malicious companies, basically, that the fundamental model of advertising on the internet no longer makes sense. I am convinced that ads don't work for anybody because so many people ignore them, are annoyed by them, are pay money to get rid of them, and simply like any pop-up or banner ad or inline ad, it's like 99 point something percent of clicks on it are accidental.
Yep. I've had YouTube Premium since it was YouTube Red back in 2015.
Right. So companies are coming to the realization that they aren't actually getting a return on their engagement because they're getting scammed by, say, pop-up blockers. They don't know how many of their views are getting blocked like that. Or what just happened with Google, where companies are paying a certain rate for their ad to appear at the front of a video. And Google was serving that on inline videos on the side of web pages that autoplay. So when someone's reading a news article, there's a YouTube video off to the side that they're not paying attention to, and that's where the ad plays, and they're not paying attention to it, which is a way to advertise, but it's not the same pay rate as, say, pulling up PewDiePie's latest video and you have to watch a advertisement for home insurance first. So there's a class action lawsuit against Google right now, and even more money is going to get scooped out of the free creator market. However, there is going to be such a backlog of created free content, or just public domain content. People forget the fact that if you are an author and you put out a book, my book costs $17, I think, for the paperback.
Really?
Paper has gotten expensive.
Yep.
I'm not making 17 in revenue, not even close. I'm making like $1.50 in royalties.
Yep.
But the thing is that when someone buys this, they're buying it preferentially over the entire Western canon, every classic science fiction, every science fiction book that was good enough to get a movie adaptation, over all these things that they can get for free against other indies releasing their books for free. And they have to choose to spend $17 to pick mine up instead of getting, even if it's objectively lower quality, but for $0. This is the problem with Netflix. Netflix is now at $14 a month, but it's because it's for a month. That $14 can translate to 140 hours of entertainment because you just sit there binging old shows on Netflix. You can go on Tubi for no payment at all because they're licensing stuff from the 90s that is still good. And arguably, it's better than what's currently being produced, and it's basically free, just a few advertisements. So to get someone to watch a new show such as The Amazing Digital Circus, which I actually quite like, I think the pilot is great. That is a preferential choice over watching, say, Police Squad with Leslie Nielsen. So this is all a product of the internet and people fame seeking. That's another big issue with advertisements, particularly because, like, if you're trying to advertise a book, the best thing you theoretically can do is buy advertisements on Amazon so that when someone puts in a keyword like fantasy novel, if you pay enough money, your book will be the top result under fantasy novel.
Yep.
But the thing is that because people are trying to buy fame, they're boomers that just retired and they finally released their life's passion to get a novel out there, and they have this huge stockpile of money that they just throw at the problem to buy fame, or it's people just trying to buy out the competition, which is what I think a lot of Hollywood is doing, is just paying money to prevent other people from being able to compete. Therefore, the price of that advertisement will never come back in revenue. You are losing money by having your book in the advertisement slot now.
Yep.
Because people are getting something other than monetary return, which is why I don't pay for advertisements. I'm not going to pay money to lose money.
Agreed.
So because that all plays into the fundamental issue of entertainment is too cheap, you're seeing this in comics. You're seeing this with the writers' strike. There is not enough money to support the people necessary to produce more content the way it used to be produced. We're going to have to enter a phase of neo patronage, where people basically just have to say, like, I like James Crake's work. I'm going to join his Patreon. I'm going to buy his books. I'm going to pick up his T-shirts and such. The creator's going to have to go into like every possible medium that they can branch into to get more revenue out of the few people willing to support them for the sake of supporting the arts, essentially. We're literally going to be regressing to like the Borgias purchasing church art.
It's very possible. But historically, writers and the like, a lot of artists have had to have a day job of some kind. And it's probably always going to be like that. It's not such an easy thing to live off of art. There's very few people who can do it and whoever will be able to do it. But I think it's something that if you really want to, say, in your case, tell a story, or in my case as well, it's something you're going to have to find the time to do in addition to what you do during your day.
Yeah, so there's unfortunately two different metrics of success.
Mm-hmm.
One being the amount of money you're generating off of your endeavors, and the other is the amount of people you're reaching. Those are basically in contest with each other.
See, I have a third metric. How much do I enjoy it? And I enjoy it rather a lot.
Sure. Well, like just to give the obvious comparison with my work, I have, I believe, after your lovely review, I have 13 reviews on Infinite Money Glitch.
Really?
Yeah, you were my 13th.
Oh, I thought you meant.
Record, I really need to get to 50. So, Chad, if you're listening, you want to pick this up and give me a review, you'd really help because the algorithm changes and it starts promoting you more at 50. But that's because I'm struggling to sell my books.
Right.
My web novel, Undying Emperor, that I give away for free because it's basically my newsletter. I had the stats on what is the average amount of people that read each chapter. Would you like to guess what my average reader count is?
It's either going to be very low or something that I find surprisingly high.
Take at least one guess.
3,000?
Oh, it's not that high. 1,400.
Okay.
I have 1,400 people read my chapters for free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have a 10% conversion to my paperbacks. That costs money.
That can be a challenge. People really do like their free, and they don't like to pay for anything outside of that.
But the thing is, like, if I was making enough money off art to do it full time, I'd be producing more at a higher quality.
True.
But no one, it's only like 5% of people that consume a free product will give you even a penny.
That is also true.
So,
but
the current system's simply going to break.
Oh yeah. Well, it's also, and that's not counting this current system because this current system will break. But if you want to make a living at anything, it's going to take at least usually 5 to 10 years for it, and that's any kind of business you want to get into.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that I'm trending onto that.
Well, I mean,
it's about 2 years now.
I've got one book that's sitting at 21 reviews, and I've got one book that's sitting at 5. So
yeah, so Faceless, my debut, is at 18. The sequel is at 2. And it makes me want to die because Gamma Coin, my most recent release, is significantly better than Infinite Money Glitch, with the exception that it's not a comedy novel, but the actual quality is significantly better, and I can't get people to buy it.
It can be trying. It's one of the reasons I have the ebook. It's also one of the reasons I started doing my own audiobooks. Now that I have a little bit of time and personal setup, I can actually start finishing, or I can finish up my next audiobook and finish up the audiobook on the second book coming out in the series. But
narrating audiobooks is another skill that I don't really want to develop.
mm-hmm.
So I'm constantly making the business case evaluation of, will I get a return on paying people to do this? And I don't think I have enough pull right now to justify audiobooks, even though I know that people enjoy, that there are huge demographics that can only consume audiobooks.
Well, you can record your own audiobook.
So I'm getting better at the narration quality incidentally because of all my YouTube, but it's the editing work.
So the editing is not terribly difficult. I can probably give you some. What program do you use?
Time consuming.
It definitely is, but the more you do it, the quicker you get at it.
Yeah, but Infinite Money Glitch would probably be something like 14 hours of narration. And I was told that basically you need to assume that you need to record everything twice, and then you have to have that time again to edit it. So that is a full work week to produce an audiobook.
Well, how many words was Infinite Money Glitch?
75,000, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it would probably take about a full work week to get that done. And it would actually probably come out to about 8 hours, not 14.
And because I'm waiting on Christmas to get a power supply, and then I will have a high quality mic. Yeah, no, my lovely brother bought me a top of the line mic and handed it to me, and it's just like, this is an XLR cable connection. It's not a USB connection mic. He was like, "What's that mean?" They said that's the best mic, and I was just like, "It means this needs like a $100 to $200 power supply to turn on." So it's been in the box.
Well, once you get that, I use Audacity, and you can do all the editing you need in that. It's actually fairly simple. The hardest part is just taking out the extra takes and doing the additional recordings and all that.
I mean, if you're like super diligent, you can intentionally just shut up for 30 seconds after a failed take. And then when you look at the audiogram, you can just see these huge quiet gaps and go, oh, that's where I had a bad take.
You can.
If you're super diligent about it.
Well, that's the thing about this secondary profession we've chosen. There's always something new to learn, something new to get into, something else to consider.
Hey, how do you feel about comics?
I have never been, outside of manga, I have never been a big comic guy.
Okay, so, all right, I'm lockstep with you. Probably for the exact same reason of it was super easy to pirate Japanese manga when we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so free versus paid, and also being able to binge. Oh wow, I just discovered what is some of that high school rom-com trash I used to read? Nejima Sensei.
I never read that
one. In one afternoon read 400 chapters of Nejima Sensei.
Yeah, because what was it? There was one manga and then Manga Panda, and you had a stable internet connection.
Yeah, well, actually, Manga Dex is actually like the best that they've ever had. But anyways, the fact that you don't have to go back to a store to pick things up was a huge pull for pirating manga.
Oh yeah.
For the record, I have atoned for my sins. I have about 500 pounds of manga on my bookshelf upstairs. I went and bought everything that was good.
So I went and got the Shonen Jump app so I could keep up with some of them because it's like $2.99 a month.
Yeah, I was keeping up on one, and then the author got sick for a few weeks and didn't release, and I literally forgot to keep checking. And then I slipped and missed a few chapters that I couldn't go back and get on the app. And I was like, well, I guess I'm done reading this because I jumped ahead and I'm confused, and there's been character development I'm not sure about. And yeah. Anyways, the reason I brought up comics though was going into comics as a writer. I'd love to do it, but the problem is I'd have to pay an illustrator or multiple illustrators, unfortunately. because the American comic book industry is broken up in a strange way that manga isn't broken up. Are you aware about that, by the way?
Yes, actually, so I'm part of a little group on Discord where there's several different authors and creatives there, and one of them is an Australian individual who has been trying to get his own comic published.
Yeah.
And
So in the Western world, you need a penciler, an inker, a colorist, a dummy creator to actually do the layout, which is sometimes the penciler, but not always, and you need a letterer. You theoretically need 5 people to produce a comic page. In manga, you have one guy and the writer can add the speech, can add all the text digitally. People don't feel the need to hand letter every piece of dialogue. I mean, they will draw in the dramatic lettering, but like speech is all done digitally, and no one
Yep.
complains. So it just concentrates the artistic effort more in a way that doesn't require this handoff where everyone needs their own page price.
Yep.
But even one way or another, if I wanted to say produce a 70-page graphic novel one-shot horror piece, which I do want to do, that's like $7,000 up front for the art because it's 70 pages and probably $100 a page.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So then you get into the math of how many people would buy a James Krake horror novel. Okay, let's say I could sell it to 1,000 people, which would be like the biggest indie comic launch ever, except for Eric's Live. That's a different scenario.
Yep.
The biggest ever. I have to add $7 per sold volume to cover the flat rate cost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I could expect to sell 10,000 copies, I only need to add 70 cents for the flat cost.
That's still ridiculously expensive.
Well, if I was selling 100,000 copies, it's 7 cents. But I literally think there are so many people trying to get into the indie comic scene that they're fighting over the same people. And that's why these sales launches on crowdfunders are so small.
Mm-hmm.
And then because they expect that they'd be lucky to move 200 copies, that's why you see price points at like, it's a $35 graphic novel that you can read in an hour. And it's just like then consumers don't want to get into it because they're not getting value for their cost.
That is true.
If you're only selling 200 copies, you have to recoup your costs.
Well, I think that's one of the, again, as we were talking about manga earlier, that's one of the reasons I think they succeed is because they don't have as many people active in it, but it also requires such a massive dedication of a single individual.
True. I mean, yeah, it's an overtime job, typically.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the, so here, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes here, but I think this is one of the big problems that we have is that a lot of people think that writing is easier than it actually is.
Yeah. Oh, I've read stories. I know it makes a good story. I can just sell my first draft. Like,
yeah.
No, you cannot.
And a lot of people will get into it and they will say they'll publish their first book and it doesn't do that well. And then they get discouraged. Well, even some of the best authors out there today, like some of the big guys that make a lot of money and have had movie deals, they didn't succeed after their first book, or hell, some of them after their 10th book. I can't remember. How many books did Sanderson write before he eventually...
13. But he sold his 4th.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a Sanderson book. You know how... I know they're ridiculously thick. I've never read any of his work.
He's actually rather good. If he basically writes Western shonen, is how he's always described.
I have him on a list to start one of his books one day. I don't want to do like all the mainstream authors at one time. I try to space it all out.
I really need to read some of his secret projects. They sound fun. Like a Fergal Wizard survival guide calls to me.
That sounds fun.
I know, right?
Yeah. But I'm trying to, like you, I'm trying to find that way to balance doing YouTube and writing my own stuff and still making enough money to survive and do all the other things I'm trying to do. And it can be a real killer. Like you can find yourself, it's like, okay, well, if I get 5 hours of sleep tonight, I can record this video, spend an hour on my book, start working some of the script for the next video, and on and on and on it goes.
Dude, don't sacrifice sleep.
Well,
the real life hack is there are not 24 hours in a day. There's about 4 productive hours per day. And if you are skipping out on sleep to force yourself on something, you are going to produce something of bad quality, and you're going to lose productive hours every day.
Well, right now normally I get my 8, but right now I'm not because we're at a really hectic time at work. And
your creativity is probably failing then.
Well, right now I'm not working. I'm doing the production side. I'm not actually writing the books right now. When things slow down, I will write. Right now I'm just working on, getting the covers down.
You're not a daily writer?
I am not. So I'm a binge writer. So I will start writing and then I will write
for like oil and water. I don't know how you people do that.
I'll write for about 6 months at a go. And then I'll burn out on it and I have to take a break. So I'll start reading again and I'll start I try not to read while I'm writing because you don't want other people's stuff to influence what you're doing.
I disagree. Or rather, I should say that, well, we're just different, I should say, because I'm a daily writer. Every single day, with very few interruptions, I write at least 1,500, possibly 2,000 words every single day without fail.
Yep.
And I read every single day without fail. And I'm not worried about style influence because I never read the same author twice. Or rather, I don't read them back to back. So I'm always just moving between things. And at the amount that I read, compared to the amount that I write, for example, I did National Novel Writing Month, and I wrote Cute Girls Fighting Demons. That took me a month. During that month, I finished like 7 books. And it would be silly to say that one of them had this undue influence on it because there were 6 others, right? So I'm just not worried about that.
Well, I'm not so much worried about their style. It's that when I read or when I write, I get so involved in what I'm doing that it's really hard for me to break from that because it feels like I should be stuck on that one thing till it's done. Like I almost never finish a book in one sitting anymore. Partly because I don't have the time and partly because people like to write some real chonky monsters.
By the way, were you happy with the length of this book?
Yes. So just for everybody out there, just so you know, with indie authors, I do like to go with some of the smaller books for a couple reasons. First of all, I know I can finish it because most indie authors don't have an audiobook. I like audiobooks because I can finish it even if I don't think I could finish reading it on my own. That's like a lot of mainstream books. I'll get the audiobook.
When you get into Sanderson, go for the audiobooks.
Oh, definitely. But another reason is with a shorter book, I feel like have you ever played Magic the Gathering?
Yes, we talked about this earlier. I was going to Grand Prix.
So you're familiar with like the deck limit, like how small it can possibly be. Everybody tries to stay as small as possible.
Tell that to Yorian.
Generally, most people try to stay as lean as possible. And I often feel, and it's not always right, but a leaner book has usually been revised down quite a bit. I feel like there might have been more work put into it. That's not always the case. I will sometimes pick up big books, but
I think you're misdiagnosing.
Really?
Yeah, I don't revise down. Like if you look at all of my books, when I edit, I actually inflate my books. When you see a smaller book, it is the author didn't put in the other ideas in the first place. Because I don't think almost any indie author has the actual guts to go in and cut out a good idea. I'm sure you've heard of Kill Your Darlings. No indie author kills their darlings. They don't.
I've had to kill a few.
But I don't think people are revising now. I think they just kept focus. And if you keep focus on what the core idea is, you end up with a shorter story.
So when I say I kill my darlings, what I'll do is, so all my books are first written by hand because I will. So
Birdie just being on a call with you. What is wrong with you?
So no, there's a reason for it. I do it with pen because I want the story to be one continuity. So like, I'm in the story. I'm writing it down as I go. I can't go back and erase. I can't get caught up in fixing it. So I'll do that. And then I'll go through and polish and then revise. But when I kill my darlings, I'll start on something. I'm like, no, this is not how this would go. This is not how I feel like these characters would act. Sometimes you'll get stuck on a tangent or go off somewhere. And then I'll just have to cross that off and go back and start over. But that's just how I do. It's a very brute force way of doing things, but.
All right, so I've got to be honest, it's 9:30.
Yeah.
You got one more question? Because we got to move to wrapping up.
Okie doke. Yep. Let's see here. What's a good last question to ask you? All right. Actually, it looks like you may have answered all of the questions I wrote down. Amazing.
No,
so
one more question. Come on.
I will ask you a question off my head. It's not even going to be an author question. It's going to be what do you find to be the most challenging part of being a YouTuber question?
I'm going to probably go with the disconnect and interest. It's obvious and I understand why. But the fact that people show up for drama and they don't stick around for the actual content is just annoying.
I could agree with that. There's a lot bigger market for rage bait content. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot like building a castle, You want to build it slow and steady and even. So
I'm hoping to get to the point where I can get a bit more. So when I live stream video games on my channel, mm-hmm. which I'm told screws up my channel's visibility, but it's also kind of like whatever. I want to get to slightly higher engagement where it's about 10 people in chat at least. Mm-hmm. So that if I'm just sitting there trying to build a factory, I can actually have a conversation with chat. When it's at 3 to 5 people, sitting there trying to be entertaining can get a little tiring.
Agreed. I found that out when I was playing Diablo 2 the other last week because I just wanted to play a game, but it's I need to make something for the channel because I have read nothing this week. So and I had just finished moving, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to play some Diablo 2 just because, and it's going to be a stream because I want to play. Yep. All right. Well, before we go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you and where to look for your work.
My YouTube is at James Krake. My Twitter is at Krake James. My website is jameskrake.com. You can find my books on Amazon by searching for James Krake. It's fucking fantastic, man. Yeah, you just need to know my name. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, Amazon, WordPress, and Royal Road. So that's going to be Undying Emperor. Your best shot of finding that is actually just going to my website and going over to the published tab.
Home address, James Krake. On James Krake Street.
I really need a snappy one that comes down to 1, 2, 3, your mom or something like that as an answer for that.
Well, I will leave that to you because I am now at about 36 hours without sleep. So,
all right. Well, thank you for having me on. And thank you for enjoying and recommending my book so much.
Not a problem. Everybody, thank you for joining me. You can also find my work on Amazon at T. Alex Ratcliffe, and you can find me on this channel on YouTube where I do stuff, whatever I feel like. Everybody have a good day and good luck to you all. And let's